Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View Ladies Tea. We've got a great show for you tonight, but before we start, I'd love to tell you about one of our sponsors, Swiss America. Our country is facing so many problems these days, of course, under Joe Biden. The last thing any of us need is more to worry about. Am I right? Unfortunately, we now have to fear losing our freedom and privacy with the Democrats' new push for a digital dollar that could allow the government to tell us what we can and cannot buy with our own hard-earned money. That's why I'm encouraging every one of you tuning into the show right now to get The Secret War on Cash, an insightful report created by my friends at Swiss America. With this report, you'll learn how to protect yourself from the threats facing our freedom and your hard-earned money. The report is available right now to my listeners free of charge. Just go to www.swissamerica.com/Trump to register immediately. Tonight, we are joined by Breitbart politics editor Emma Jo Morris. Welcome back, Emma Jo, and editor-in-chief of Breitbart, Alex Marlow, whose book, Breaking the News, has a new edition out today. Emma Jo and Alex, thanks for joining us. And Alex, congratulations. There's a new baby in your family. There's a lot going on. We're excited to get you guys both here tonight. This is a big show because this is our first show with Salem officially for The Right View. We're really excited. And Alex, congrats. How's it going with the new baby at the house?
It's going terrific. I try to walk the walk. We're trying to have as many kids as possible. I have no idea what time of day it is. It is absolutely irrelevant to me. The sun's up or not, but we're very happy and truly blessed. I recommend children to anyone considering.
Agreed. And by the way, you would not have convinced me of that, honestly, before I actually had them. When I was pregnant with my son, our first child, I was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I hope I like him as much as the dogs. And turns out, yeah, I do. So it all works out in our house. 3 dogs, 2 kids. Eric would like us to catch up. But I'm all set right now with 2.
What people miss out on, Laura, and I'm sure this is your experience, when you're thinking about the idea of having children, you haven't met the children yet. Once you get to meet
you don't
them,
know what you're getting.
Get to know them. Exactly.
Right. No, it's very
and
cool.
Mine are all going to be future Trump voters. I have this message packaged specifically for Media Matters. They're ready to vote for Don Jr. They're ready to vote for Eric. They're ready to vote for Barron. Whichever Trump wants to run, my children are going to be raised with the correct values. Maybe we'll get a Trump ticket. Have you ever considered running with Eric? Laura, you could do it.
Can I tell you how much I would want to do it simply to see the reaction out there? Because we know that the folks out there in the mainstream media love anything to do with Trump's. A double Trump ticket. I mean, I don't know that we could survive such a thing in the media world because people's heads would literally just explode like a Dave Chappelle skit.
If you want to make me and Emma happy, make it a Trump Biden ticket. Get Hunter on there somewhere. The only cool Democrat. A unity ticket. We got it. We got it right there. Emma Jo, would you be our first? I'm going crazy with this.
Are you just getting that advice for free?
Have we ever had a Canadian press secretary?
Oh, by the way, I mean, I'm just going to say.
Think about it.
Think about it. Just bank it because it seems like we are on the way to, knock on wood, and I've said it a million times, I'll say it again, a second term in the White House for Donald Trump. And of course, it all started last night in Iowa. Now, truth be told, talking about kids, I was supposed to go to Iowa. And then all of a sudden, I realized, maybe a little too late. And there are probably a lot of moms and dads out there who are in the same boat, that my kids had Monday off of school because it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we were kind of stuck. So I sent my husband, Eric, on out to Iowa. He flew out yesterday morning. And I got to tell you, listening to his details of what was going on the ground, Emma Jo, was really amazing because it was below 0 degrees. It was like -4 when he landed in Des Moines. And then he was talking about how many people he would see out at his very caucus location. It's kind of amazing the energy that people brought in Iowa. And then, of course, history was made because all Donald Trump had to do was win by over 12.8%. And he would make history. He actually won with 51% of the vote. No one even came close. Ron DeSantis, of course, in second place. Nikki Haley in third. Vivek, God bless him, he dropped out and endorsed my father-in-law last night. What did you think, Emma Jo, of the win last night for Donald Trump? I think it sort of sets the tone for what is to come over the next 10 and a half months.
Yeah, it was so exciting, to be honest. It was really exciting. It was really fun. It actually kind of felt like today feels like the first day of the general election.
Yeah.
I said this on radio this morning. I commend Vivek for conceding last night, and I know Alex didn't like the form, but I guess I agree. But I like the fact that he did that, because I think that it's commendable that he's probably the only one running for president other than Trump right now on the Republican ticket who is like aware of politics. The other two are just kind of there, and they're burning money. And I guess I'm fine with that, because whose money are they burning? Like whoever it is fine with me, except that it would just be much more, I think, useful and productive to concede. Obviously, there's no path for any alternative here, and channel the energy toward the Democrats. Obviously,
yeah.
You have these two up there in the last debate talking about cutting Social Security, and it's just like donor talk, and it's hurting the right. It's like, just stop, right. Just stop. Just concede, go over to Trump, kiss and make up, and let's move forward, obviously.
Yeah, well, no, Shannon, it's something I've been saying for a long time now. I mean, I knew just based on what we felt out there, what polling showed us, but now we have solid evidence, Alex, that Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, right? Like there's no two ways about it at this point. Obviously, we have New Hampshire next week. We have South Carolina. We have Nevada. And then we kind of go down the line from there. I would expect that after New Hampshire, if not South Carolina, we should see the last two drop out of the race. And it's interesting, Emma Jo, that you brought up that CNN debate, right? That Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis had like a week ago. It was on in the background as I was like getting ready for bed the other night. And truth be told, I really just kind of skimmed parts of it previously, but I really got to listen to most of it the other night. And I was like, what a waste of everyone's time and energy. It was like two people standing there punching each other in the face, knowing that neither one of them was actually going to gain anything from what they were doing. I thought it was ridiculous. And I've said for a long time, I think that people in the Republican Party, anyone running for president, should at this point say enough is enough. I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm not going to waste any more money. Let's all galvanize our support behind the Republican nominee for president, Donald J. Trump. Let's fight against the Democrats, the Biden machine. Let's make sure that we get a victory on November 5th of this year. Alex, I agree with Emma Jo's take on this. I'm ready to see everybody supporting Donald J. Trump.
I don't know who honestly didn't see that before last night. I'm shocked it took last night for certain people. But I have to say, I am just delighting in the fact that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are still in the race, because nothing will make me happier than to watch the horrible donor class oligarchs who back Nikki Haley waste more money on future states for her to inevitably lose. And all of the clowns online who back Ron DeSantis, the most heinous people imaginable, who bet so hard on such a mediocrity of a candidate. He's a good governor, very good governor, but with one of the worst candidates ever. And to watch these people destroy their reputations online for this guy, and to have them keep doing it, make them do it for another week or two. Let's go see who all of them are. All of them keep typing out those tweets so we all know who you are.
Take screenshots of all of it so we remember. And don't think we don't already know who you guys are. You could delete them now, but we've got your number.
All of the hate, all of just the idiocy, the sanctimony. They're all sanctimonious. They are. Yep. Trump got it right. I would love to see it for a couple more weeks. I'll be giggling while I watch it as we wait for the inevitable, which is Trump's nomination.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time. I mean, in the history of this country and in the history of politics, I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And to come out of the gate that hot with the 51% win, I mean, and you know that these folks in the mainstream media were just waiting for it not to be that big of a win. Had it been anything under 50%, you know, they would have said, oh, it's not as big as the Trump team predicted.
Yes.
Donald Trump himself said it would be a big win. What are they going to say now? That's it. It's done. He proved it.
Well, we watched this happen. It happened on CBS. I watched a panel of this, and it was all these people. I think it was CBS. They're all interchangeable. It's one of the alphabet networks.
Yeah.
I watched three people who were completely out of touch with the American voters. They were in Iowa, and they were explaining how if Trump gets under 50%, who created that threshold, by the way? 49% would have been pretty damn good. So would 45. Yeah. That would have been great, too. So, but they said, well, if he gets under 50%, there really could be a race. What are you talking about? You know nothing. He got over 50% anyway. Fire all of them. Throw stuff at your TV. Never watch these people unless you're doing it with popcorn just to make fun of them.
Well, that's what I do. And I actually love to go on MSNBC to gauge how well Trump is doing by how suicidal the panel is.
Yeah. Last night must have been good. I didn't tune in there. How were they?
My main regret from 2016 during the election when I was too busy to turn on the Young Turks and to turn on MSNBC. And that's a regret I'll take to the grave.
I know, when Jen Psaki looks like she's about to drown in her Chardonnay that Trump is killing him.
And we love that. That is a good look. You know what's interesting is I got asked to do one of these very networks last night. I got asked to do something for ABC. And it's funny because before I went on and before they talked to me, and they were polite enough to me. I mean, I was, of course, ready for whatever. I was listening to the guests who were prior to me on ABC. And it's amazing because if you actually tune in to get your news and information from these outlets, I mean, you are getting such bad information. Just a little bit that I heard in the lead up to my segment was, I mean, it was absolutely preposterous. First, the interviewer asked somebody about the way that the voting laws have made it so restrictive that it's going to prevent so many people from voting. By the way, I was like, can we turn my mic on and bring me on now? Because number one, I'd love to ask her, what are those laws? Number two, since when is it bad to ensure that you actually have secure elections? We need a voter ID in places. Apparently that is probably part of it. And then the next guest was talking about how Iowans, and this was a very big part of last night's win, were incredibly concerned with the border. 8 in 10 people, I think, said that the southern border was like their number one issue, the illegal immigration into this country. And the person they had on to talk about it talked about how Republicans are using scare tactics and how people don't really understand because it is such an intricate system, the immigration system. People don't really understand it, and it's not going to affect people in Iowa. So why do they care? Are these people kidding? It affects every single segment of this country. But my takeaway from listening to this intro into my segment on ABC was like, if you were watching any of the alphabet networks, as you just said, Alex, you really are doing yourself a disservice because these people are 100% giving you bad information. It was really amazing to see. Not surprising, but sort of amazing to see.
There was one network last night that had to have taken the medal. And you know I'm biased because I love MSNBC. I really do. I love Morning Joe and Maddow. I think they're the 3 most entertaining people in media. Sorry, Alex. Sorry, Lara, but it's just true. Try to beat them. You can't. Last night, Maddow says that she is not airing Trump's speech after he won that primary because he says untruths. Oh. And keep in mind who this is coming from. Rachel Maddow, the same person who literally would get on TV with the head of the CIA, John Brennan, to do a collab with the intelligence community to lie maliciously and purposely to the American people. She was at one point tied with Hannity for many weeks in a row with the #1 show on cable news to lie that the president of the United States is a Manchurian candidate controlled by Vladimir Putin. This is the person who's now strutting onto TV to tell you that you can't watch the victory speech of a candidate for president who, by the way, is being persecuted by like 5 different jurisdictions because he says untruths.
Yeah.
Like, this woman is literally, I'm sorry, but like, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but if there were such thing as Project Mockingbird, I think this is the spokesperson. She literally has the CIA on her show to talk.
It's amazing.
No, it is Maddow and Lara, you're very kind to recommend my book, Breaking the News, which was a New York Times bestseller. It just got re-released this week. And I will tell you, the reason why I recommend it for everyone today is because I think it gives really essential details about how the 2020 election was rigged. It was not rigged the way a lot of people think. So it's my highest recommendation of why people should get it. But I will tell you, Rachel Maddow gets a lot of attention in the book. And when you start reading end to end the lies she put out about Russia collusion and Trump, you don't think that she's doing performance art, which is how I typically think of her, as just a performance artist. You think of her as a full-blown kook. You think of her as completely insane when you start reading the things back to back to back that she spit out at her audience with not only no consequences, rewards, right. Tens of millions of dollars, #1 book deals, all of that for lying to people's face, but sounding smart while she lied. That's the key. While you lie, you have to sound really smart and look smart too while you're doing the lying.
She's not a kook at all. She's a Rhodes Scholar. That is a brilliant person. She's some whack job that they picked up off the subway station at 47th Street. She is a very smart person. She knows what she's doing. Sorry, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, that's the most terrifying part. And by the way, Alex, I think it's really great that you brought up your book because look, here we are really in the midst of now officially, it feels like, one of the most important, if not the most important elections in our lifetime. Because if we allow these same people who, as Emma Jo just talked about, are persecuting my father-in-law, the #1 candidate on the Republican side, the likely Republican nominee for president, and using Biden's Department of Justice against his #1 opponent, if we allow these people to get away with it now, I don't know that we have the same country on the other side of things. So when we are headed into something like this, people need to get ready. You need to arm yourself with information, and a book like yours, Breaking the News, to give people that information, because we all have friends who are kind of like, well, I don't know. I don't think I could vote for Trump because of X, Y, and Z lie. Get the information, learn about it so you can immediately refute these ridiculous claims that people tend to make because they have unfortunately tuned in to one of these stations. I think it's very important for people.
That's so wonderfully put. And that's exactly why I write anything, is for that purpose, because I want people to have references and arguments, because we are going to have conversations with people who are otherwise disinterested in politics in our lives over the next 10, 11 months.
Yep.
And they're going to have questions for us. And there are good answers to the vast, vast, vast majority of those questions. It's just a matter of doing a little homework, doing a little preparation. And that's the service that we provide at Breitbart. And that's what I try to do with my books as well, is to try to give you some of those arguments. So when you're in those debates, when you're in those discussions, and I don't really like debates as much as just simply using the Socratic method, asking questions, making people defend their own views, and occasionally bring up a devastating point or two to try to get something across. I think if people took the time to understand Donald Trump, they will like him even more than they like him now, even if they're already a fan. And I think that that's the task that we have to recommend to people in our lives. Try to get to know him over the next 10, 11 months. I think what you find is going to probably surprise you in a positive way.
Yeah, a lot of people are a little nervous about that. If they like Donald Trump, what does that say about them? But I think you're exactly right. This is a member of my family, and I can tell you that what I've seen out there, if I were not in this the way I am, I see how people get tricked. I see how people fall for it. It's very easy to do these days. So I appreciate, Alex, that you have given people a guide and the real information so that they can prepare themselves for these conversations, because they're very, very important. Look, we know all across this country, things are going in the wrong direction. Obviously, we have inflation that is still a big problem. People are having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Gas is still sky high. And obviously, crime is something that is very concerning to a lot of people out there. There is a celebrity food critic. His name is Keith Lee. He has 15.6 million TikTok followers. I keep saying I got to get on TikTok. I swear I'm going to do it at some point. He canceled a trip to San Francisco, citing that it was too dangerous and that the food choices were rather poor. As the reasons that he and his family had to cancel this trip. They started out headed to San Francisco and they did a couple of stops. And apparently, Emma Jo, it got a little too much. He says, I truly don't believe the Bay is a place for tourists right now. The people of the Bay are just focused on surviving. I mean, we all know it's bad in San Francisco. Bring in, of course, a communist dictator like Xi Jinping, and they'll roll out the red carpet and they'll clean up the streets. But for the average person out there, this is a very dangerous place. This is somewhere in the United States of America that a guy had to abandon taking a trip to taste food because it's too dangerous.
Yeah, you took my joke away, which I'm annoyed about. That too long, because I was going to say, unfortunately for this guy, he's not the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah. So he has to visit a shitty version of San Francisco,
right,
as opposed to a clean version, which is what we give the CCP chairman.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, no, it's like crazy. And it's clearly like that episode was so devastating, not only because they cleaned up the city for a murderous dictator, but because it showed that they can.
Right.
And it showed that they're actually, if they change their policy and change their tack, that they would be able to deal with this. You just take the people, detain them, and move them away, which is obviously probably the most pragmatic way of doing things, which is why they did that when they had to deal with the mess. And they just refused to do that on a regular basis for reasons that I can't really discern. Is this worth the virtue signal? It's a humiliation of the city, of its leaders, of its people, not to mention the fact that it just makes it miserable to live there. So I'm just confused. And, I see the same thing in New York where, okay, we didn't have Xi Jinping visit, so I didn't get to see New York super clean. But Eric Adams knows exactly what he has to do. And he finds places to store people when he needs to, and when it's politically efficient to. But on a day-to-day basis, it's an absolute zoo. So I don't know why I really can't get into the mind of a progressive lawmaker on this. It's just beyond me. Sometimes I can, on this one I can't. I don't even know what to say.
It's so sad. I mean, Alex, you live in California. God bless. I mean, I feel for a lot of folks out in California. Just next door to San Francisco, of course, is Oakland. Oakland saw 15,000 car thefts last year. That is equivalent to 1 for every 30 of its residents. This is a very different San Francisco Bay Area, by the way, than the years of the Full House episodes where you used to see it look beautiful. I was like, oh, who wouldn't want to live there? Not anymore. Those days are over. Now we know that, of course, they have an understaffed police department. And because of that, the police department says it's too busy dealing with the 21% spike in violent crime to actually do anything about these car thefts. Only about less than 5% of the thefts actually resulted in an arrest. 45% increase from the year before in 2022. Of course, the mayor and the district attorney are outspoken progressives who say that police accountability and racial equity are their priorities, Alex.
Yeah, I'm shocked that there's so many cars still in Oakland. I thought everyone would be on public transit by now and walking and bicycling everywhere, maybe scootering. But I hate to do this. It feels rude, but I have to mention that in my second book, Breaking Biden, which is basically, it's all a series. It's why I use the breaking motif. I open up my chapter on crime in Joe Biden's America with an essay about my time in the Bay Area, where I went to UC Berkeley there. I lived there. And the first 5 or 6 pages of the chapter is just an essay on how I've watched that area degrade itself over time to now you can't even visit it. It was one of the cities on a hill in this country, and now you can't visit it. And I give data, aside from any personal stories, about how from the pandemic to 2023 in the Union Square area, which is one of the centerpieces of town, nearly half of the stores there have closed, nearly half, including a major mall where I used to do a lot of my dates with Mrs. Dr. Marlow when we were in our courtship. I have a lot of nostalgia for that place. It's closed now, completely closed. A massive Westfields mall in the middle of town. They can't keep it open. They have a Whole Foods there, a flagship store. 568 emergency calls from that Whole Foods to 911 in 1 year. And then they shut down the store. Some of them are about a guy attempting to defecate on the floor. That was an attempt, mind you, apparently. One guy died of a fentanyl overdose in the bathroom. And just so much theft. It's just these people who are in charge either do not like people, or I don't know what the explanation is. They've ruined that place. They've ruined it. It wasn't always like this, and they've ruined it. And this is the message that people have to understand. The longer the Joe Bidens of the world are in charge, the more we're going to see this happen to every single city in this country.
Yep, it is spreading. It is terrifying, and it is so preventable, which I think is incredibly frustrating to people. All right, we're going to take a very quick break. Stay with us. We will be right back. All right, now I hate to interrupt the show, but if you are anything like me, you know that I take my health very seriously. In fact, with each year that passes, the goal of staying in my healthiest and best shape takes on more and more importance for me in my life. Feeling good is something I don't take for granted, and it's become an essential goal for me every single day. That means there are specific things that I have to do to make sure I'm feeling my absolute best. And one of those things is always remembering to take Balance of Nature supplements. Want to know how I chose Balance of Nature? There are so many products out there, and it's almost impossible to know that you've made the right choice. But with Balance of Nature, I know everything that is in Balance of Nature is made from whole food ingredients, just like it's supposed to be. If getting more serious about your health is something you've been wanting to commit to, I highly recommend you check out Balance of Nature. You can order them directly at www.balanceofnature.com and make sure you use promo code LARA, L-A-R-A, to get 35% off of your order. All right, so talking about Joe Biden, obviously, Alex, you just brought him up, and we know that this guy, I mean, who knows if he really is in charge or someone else is in charge. I'll tell you what we do know is that he's doing a horrific job as president of the United States. We have a fully open southern border. They tell us that somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 million illegal immigrants have come over. I'm going to say probably add 50% plus to that as the real number. Those are the ones we know about, of course. And in December, we broke an all-time record for the most number of illegal immigrant border crossings, 276,000 just in the month of December. There have been 760,000 encounters, Emma Jo, since October 1st. You know, it's funny because I was talking about how I was listening to these people on TV last night just before I came on, discussing why it is that Republicans get so worried. Why is it conservatives are so upset about immigration? People don't really understand it. I think we do understand it. I think we understand it very well. And I think we understand that when you have a law on the books that says that you can't just cross our border without going through a process, that should be enforced. Joe Biden hasn't done it. Kamala Harris, the border czar, hasn't done it. And here we are. It seems like every other month we break some major record.
Yeah, Republicans are furious. This is the top issue. But in Iowa, this was the top issue for Republicans. It's the top issue for Americans across the country, or among them. And the frustrating thing is especially with conservatives, this is such a big issue in conservative media and conservative discourse and conservative minds of regular people. And the only conservatives in the country who don't seem to be up on it are the ones that we elected apparently to lead us. You know, you have Speaker Johnson, who's like, you know, we're going to get some wins on this, and it's all very airy, and it doesn't feel very winny at all. And then you have Langford straight up just getting on, you know, on his knees about it with the Senate, and he's saying, oh, well, only the first 5,000 that come in will get amnesty. Like, what are you talking about? So it's very frustrating because you have the Democrats who are actively, you know, proponents of open borders, obviously. You have Mayorkas, who has opened the floodgates, Biden, who's completely comfortable with that. The Democrats are talking about sanctuary cities, and that's their official position. And I think it's absolutely insane to take that position, but they have taken it. But then you have the Republicans who are kind of worms about it, and they purport to represent people who do not want this, and yet they just give in to every single thing on the openly open border Democrat agenda. It's disturbing.
Well, and that's why I think Donald Trump did have such an epic win last night, because he has never wavered for a single second on the southern border. If you remember in 2015, in June of 2015, when he came down the escalator in Trump Tower and announced his candidacy for president of the United States, that was sort of the centerpiece of his entire speech. That's what everyone honed in on was, oh my gosh, Donald Trump talking about people illegally coming into this country. Well, he's a businessman, and he knows that for every person who crosses that border illegally, who's not paying into our taxes here in the United States, who does go to the emergency room, who pays those bills, who puts their kid in school, who utilizes all the systems we have here in this country, someone has to pay for it. He knew that a long time ago, and he started talking about it in 2015. Of course, Alex, he was immediately attacked. He was called a racist for it. But you cannot, in perpetuity, allow people to just free flow into the United States of America. It does not work. It doesn't work because we can't sustain all of these people. We can't pay for all of these people. But then you got to think about the people who come here and have a nefarious reason for being here, who may want to hurt people in this country, and no one knows who they are. We've caught, just in the last year alone, 169 on the terror watch list. Think about all those who got through who we don't even know about. And then you look at things like what goes on in New York City. And obviously, Eric Adams has himself in a bit of a pickle. New York City, a sanctuary city, very proud of that, up until all of these people started coming to New York. And Eric Adams said, I don't know what to do with them. It's costing $12 billion a year for the city of New York. And then you had this situation last week, I believe. James Madison High School in Brooklyn had to close down. Kids couldn't go to school for, I think, 2 days because they had to accommodate 2,000 illegal immigrants. There was some major storm that was coming through, and obviously no one wants anyone to be hurt. But the principal of this school then attacked parents who were like, hey, I want my kid in school. My kid is already behind because of COVID. Now my kid can't go to school because people who broke the law to come here, who shouldn't even be here, now have to take these spots in the school. What is going on? Places like New York are now seeing why this sort of thing does not work, Alex. You can't continue to just let everyone in without some sort of a plan or a system in place.
Yeah, it's really amazing how people have to, they can't just read an article or listen to a compelling book or podcast and get this. They have to wait until their city is actually being destroyed.
Yeah.
It's quite frustrating because I come from LA, so I witnessed it firsthand because 30 years ago, the illegal immigration was already ruining the city. It was crystal clear to anyone paying attention that was happening. And so we had to wait 30 years for New York to figure it out. Like, you had these examples of our schools are unusable in the LA area. There's crime all over the place. The schools are too expensive, and you can't even get any education there because it's too expensive to educate all these people who are just flowing in or not assimilated. Many of them don't speak the language. It is very, very challenging. We provided all these unnecessary challenges, and we still have the border wide open. We've been reporting exclusively at Breitbart. I just pulled the latest numbers. Over Christmas and New Year's week, we saw 65,000 new illegal aliens, according to government officials in Texas, 60,000 in Arizona. When I spoke to President Trump at Mar-a-Lago a couple of weeks ago, he estimates it'll be 15 million total that have crossed illegally since Biden was elected. Even if that number is a little high, it's going to be very many millions. And we're mostly cool with it. Well, not everyone, not the voters of Iowa. They're not cool with it. We have to understand every state is a border state. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. We have to keep repeating that mantra because people get it. People understand to leave the border open is to degrade what it means to be an American, and it degrades what it means to have a country. Do we believe in this country? If so, the border is a number one priority.
Yeah, well, I think you're going to see more people voting that way. I think that is a major concern to people all across this country, and rightly so. It's not just affecting people at the border. It's not just affecting people in New York. Emma Jo, I know that's where you are. All you have to do is walk around that city right now. I lived in New York for 15 years. It's a different place right now. And this is part of the issue. I don't know how New York comes back. I don't know what it'll take to bring that city back. But people all across this country have realized it is a major problem. And I guess the play from the Biden administration was this was some major virtue signal. This was something that felt great to say, let's just let everyone in. Everyone knows now is the time to come. The borders are, we'll name her borders are, whatever that means, because she's still got, how insane is it, by the way? Kamala Harris has not gone to the southern border one time. She hasn't gone one time as borders are. Is that mind-boggling to anyone? It was a big deal for like a couple of months. We're in year 3. Year 4 almost of Biden, and Kamala Harris as president and vice president hasn't gone one time, Emma Jo, down to the southern border. I think this is a major issue for people as we head towards Election Day. It was obviously an issue for the voters in Iowa. I'm looking forward to hearing what people in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada have to say about it as well.
For sure. And they try to, because they don't want to do anything that would have bad optics, i.e. put up a impenetrable structure and then line it up with like soldiers to defend it. They don't want to do any of that because that won't look nice on camera. So they're making this into, and Kamala Harris needs this too, because she's, apparently an intellectual and an ambassador. So they make it into like a foreign policy, like a foreign policy adjacent issue where, no, she's not going to go to the border, Lara. That is so two-dimensional and stupid of you.
Right.
The border is at the border. No, she's going to like, El Salvador
to find the root causes. Did she find them?
And diplomacy, and that's the problem. They're trying to over-intellectualize it because that's the type of people that they are. That's the optics that they like, and they don't want to, have to deal with the problems. So they pretend to deal with it and send her to El Salvador. It's a joke. These people are a joke. Obviously they are, and they don't even want to say with a straight face that they're failing at this, which is why they're saying, oh, no, it's a right-wing media Trump thing. No one actually cares, and this isn't actually happening, and shut up.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, we'll see. It might be too late, but we'll see what people have to say about it. And I can guarantee you, day one of Donald Trump's second term in office, he will address this problem. The wall will be re-erected in areas where they took it down and then had to stand people there to actually guard it. I can't believe it's true, but that is true. We will finish the wall, and I will promise you, you will see a major decrease in the number of people coming to the southern border because they will know they will be turned away and they will not be getting into this country.
I know this for a fact. I had brunch with an illegal alien about a year ago in New York for a story, and I encourage everybody to go read it. It's called My Day with a Biden Migrant. And over brunch, I was interviewing him on Google Translate, of course, because he spoke not a word of English. And I asked him, why did you come now? It was the summer, and it was like, it was super hot in New York, let alone I can't even imagine like in the desert in this down south.
Yeah.
And he said, because Trump isn't president, Biden is president.
Wow.
And I thought that was like, I couldn't believe that he wasn't actually sent by Alex on the for that line. And that was what he said. And that is what you see. This is a pattern. Whenever you get reporters with cameras in these guys' faces, they're all saying, thank you, Joe Biden, for giving me my opportunity in America. It's like everyone knows the joke, except apparently the White House.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a joke. We look like a joke right now as a country on a whole host of different fronts. You can add this, of course, to the list. Here's another joke that I think is a little wild. We know how much Joe Biden and his whole crew love DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's something they're obsessed with. It is really the only factor that matters in a lot of different spaces for them. Joe Biden was the first to tell us that he chose his running mate, Kamala Harris, the border czar we're just referencing. I use air quotes around that, based on how she looked, not based on her qualifications for the job of vice president, not based on what she could bring to the table, based on how she looked, because that was what was most important to him. Biden's FAA is actively recruiting people with, quote, severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities as part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. And you think about what you want to look for when you are hiring someone who has a job with the Federal Aviation Administration, Alex. And I'd want to know that these were among the most qualified people. I would put them through a rigorous test of sorts. We've seen 19 instances where planes have nearly crashed into each other over the past year. I mean, we've heard about a lot of issues. We just had that Alaskan Airlines flight that had the whole door blow off of it. It feels like things when you fly right now aren't really up to where they should be. And that's not a comfortable place to be in the United States of America. But I guess if you are prioritizing things like DEI over the most qualified candidates for a job, perhaps this was something we could have expected.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we should embrace it because we've already chosen as a society, we're going to go down this road. And think about the Kamala Harris choice for vice president. You correctly noted it was a DEI pick. Also, though, underrated about that pick is that Joe Biden knew she was an idiot, and choosing Kamala Harris means that his vice president wasn't going to surpass him. Also.
Right.
And the donors love her. You should see that the amount of money, the Biden-Harris ticket, who a lot of people don't think is really going to be the ticket, they're raking in all this money. Why are they raking in this money? Because the donors are all in on it. They all get the joke. And that's why I've been saying Biden's going to be the nominee. And Harris can't pass Biden because Harris is a BIPOC woman. It means Newsom can't pass Harris and thus not pass Biden. It all is designed perfectly so that the establishment maintains control. I give them quite a bit of credit for this. But if we're going to do the thing where we're choosing our Supreme Court justices based on their skin tone, then of course we can do any job based on skin tone, any of them. I'm just looking forward to when the NBA and the NFL start doing their diversity and their forced quotas. The games are going to get so much better because I want more 6-foot-tall blogger dad representation in the NBA. I think that's going to make the games much better. People are going to really like that. It's going to make the product so much. Let's just do it. We're on the slippery slope. Let's just go. Let's just go for it. Everything should be equal representation now.
Let's say
if you're going in, go all in.
The all-Jewish Lakers team.
I love it.
You know, if we're going to go in, I mean, that's sort of like, that's the joke. It's so crazy to think that this is any reason to choose anyone for any position. But then you have places like the University of Washington, who apparently, it was recently discovered, forced their white staff to endure this very rigorous DEI training. Here's what they say about it. The DEI training also requires white employees to learn how to be anti-racist and forces them to provide examples of their so-called white privilege and fragility. It also instructs employees to take courses on unlearning the systematic racism that they were inherently born with, according to documents. This is an institution that is supposed to educate people. Some of the questions they are forced to answer are, do I understand the definition of racist? Do I understand that being not racist isn't the same as being anti-racist? Have I confronted the racist ideas I've held or continue to hold? Have I confronted my fear of identifying my power and privilege? What am I doing every single day to force myself to think about racism and white supremacy? What am I doing every day to stop the killing of Black people? What? This is, I mean, this is so intense and over the top. Thinking every single day about racism and white supremacy. This is really, Emma Jo, this is what these people want to see happen. This is really kind of sick stuff. And it's unreal that this is going on at a place that is supposed to make people smarter, according to their title.
Well, that's outdated. But yeah, I mean, as much as we laugh about how they're giving us like literally like mentally and emotionally like incapacitated people to like fly our planes, according to the article that you just read in your conversation with Alex, I mean, it's very funny. And like, I can barely hold myself together in this conversation, actually. But aside from the joke of it, because it like you really do feel like you live in a South Park episode, but if you really like take that aside and realize that this isn't South Park and that we're actually like living this, you see something really scary, which is that they are moving the pendulum all the way to the left, all the way to the left. And then once you think that the pendulum can't move further to the left, they give you a mentally incompetent pilot and they move it further to the left. And, you know, I worry about that. Because when you move the pendulum that far, it swings. First of all, it's hell when you live in that society, and then it swings back the other way, and it swings even as far the other way. And you end up living in this world where everybody is kind of radicalized and where everybody is kind of an extremist. And I even remember, like, you know, when I got out of university, when I was living in this how does your racism curb death of people every day or whatever talk every single day, I came out of that environment feeling like I wanted to dig my heels in whatever I was thinking when I was 22 or whatever. And it wasn't very smart. And I only realized after I kind of started to interact with the normal world more and I kind of calmed down. But if the world around you is so extreme and radical and insane, you get extreme and radical and insane either on that way or in the opposite way. And I don't want to live in that world, you know, and so we can laugh about this and call it panderverse, which it is. But at the end of it, we end up in a really lame society with really bitter people in it. And I can't help but wonder if that's the point.
I mean, that must be part of it. If you're forcing people to think about racism and white supremacy every single day, wow, that's a bit of a downer. That's probably not going to make them productive individuals. This stuff is so crazy. And I mean, look, I'm just glad that at least we're able to recognize it now, because I feel like for a long time, this sort of thing was kind of happening, but it wasn't really talked about or brought to the surface. They were kind of like low key doing it, not really, no one really understood the depth of it. This stuff is insane and this is crazy. And there's no reason any of this should be happening in our country. But you're right, Emma Jo. I think the scary thing is people see stuff like this and they hear stuff like this and it infuriates people because they're like, wait a minute, you mean you're not choosing someone based on the best possible person to direct airplanes, the things that hold, you know, however many, 100 people at a time that could crash any, like, really? You're not choosing the best person. You're choosing them based on some DEI stuff. It's insane. Before we go, I just want to really quickly talk about dating apps. Now, I'm not one that's ever gone on a dating app. Truth be told, my husband and I met, I'll say the old-fashioned way. We met each other out one night in New York. However, I do know that sometimes dating apps work out. But according to a recent article, dating apps are dead. They are done. No one wants to use them anymore. Everyone says the photos are over-filtered so that whenever you actually meet up with someone, they don't look at all like the photo that they posted. They have a little back and forth banter before the date. And oftentimes that doesn't translate when you're in person, or people are just like straight up getting ghosted. I know several friends who had a date set via one of these dating apps and the other person just didn't even show up. So this woman is saying that Gen Zers are deleting Tinder and Bumble and Hinge, and they're trying to meet people the old-fashioned way. I am very happy to hear about this, Alex. How did you and your wife meet? You referenced when you were courting in the Bay Area. Did you meet the old-fashioned way or did you meet via a dating app?
Yeah, we met them the most old-fashioned way. We were at just a regular conference of overrepresented white Christians in Iowa, and we were all congregating. It was one of the meetings that everyone's been saying that exists, but that's where we met, just at one of those confabs where all we whites get together to collude and make the country. No. We met in high school. We met in high school, and it was the old-fashioned way. It was, we both thought each other was good looking and we started talking and that was it. And it worked out. beautifully for me and for my children. But I find this to be an interesting trend. I've never had to use apps because I've been, coincidentally, as we're having this conversation, this is the 20-year anniversary of my first date with my wife.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of wild. If it makes you feel a little old, but also a little proud in a way. But my sister, who's she's dating currently, I've noticed that she lived with me and she stopped using the apps. And she says that it's very hard to find high quality people on the apps. And she said not impossible, but the amount you have to sift through of the overrepresentation of people who don't present in a way that's overall appealing, it just becomes too exhausting of a filtration process. And so she's gotten back to meeting people through friends, meeting people through work. And that to me makes perfect sense. It felt like a trend, but I have no idea if it's going to end or not. It's certainly, I'm not shocked that it's scaling back.
Yeah, Emma Jo, I mean, I feel very lucky. I never had to go through any of the online dating, the app dating stuff, because I think it's just such a symptom of where we are, I feel like right now in our society, where everything is just so easy and so disposable, and you can just swipe on people. And it's just like, you're always looking for the next best thing is what I hear from a lot of people who used dating apps or currently are using them. Yeah. And it just sucks all of the positivity out of actually going on a date with somebody and having some sort of a connection or anything. Did you ever use dating apps?
Yeah, that's actually so true. And it's funny because I met my wife on a dating app, and the way that I went about it was I heard from my friends how disposable everybody feels when you're on the apps because constantly swipe and be on a new date tomorrow. So I went into it being like, okay, I'm going to meet somebody and arrange a time to meet them, and then I'm going to delete the app and I'll go back on it, I guess, if it doesn't work out. And that was going to be my strategy for using it, because I saw that so many of my friends were having such horrible experiences with it because everybody is trading each other like cards on this thing where everybody's instantly accessible. So I downloaded the app and I met this person on it, and I thought she seemed nice, and we had a conversation. We actually talked about religion in the first conversation, and she was like, oh, let's go for lunch. And I was like, okay, good, here's my phone number, and I deleted the app, and now we're married.
Wow. By the way, that's the smart way to use it, because then it's not so easy to go back and be like, never mind. Well, I don't feel like going out today. I'll just not show up.
Well, right. That's it. And I had we had a proper conversation, and I felt excited to meet her, and then I deleted it. But the thing is, like with Gen Z, they're all on these apps. I guess now apparently according to this article, they're deleting it. But up until 5 seconds ago, they're all on the apps. And Gen Z, it's funny, has the least sex. And of the people in Gen Z who are having sex, something like 70% are having casual random sex, like random encounters where it's a one-night stand or whatever. They never talk again or they never sleep together again. So these things, I had a really good experience with it. I think I went about it really intentionally. But the people who are just using them as like social media apps on their phone and never delete them, those people are ending up having meaningless experiences and unfulfilling encounters. And I'm glad to hear that people are deleting them. I had a good experience. I don't think 99% of people use it the way I did. And it's making everybody feel like a commodity and gross. And nobody is getting anything meaningful out of the experience. So good. People should meet the old-fashioned way. Maybe they'll learn some social skills while they're at it. Who knows?
We need a lot. We need some social skills. God knows. Let's bring the social skills back. Well, on that note, Emma Jo and Alex, I want to say thank you both for being with us here on The Right View. This was, of course, a big episode for us, the first with Salem. We are so excited to be a part of the team there. Thank you both for joining us. And to everyone at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.
Thank you.
Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it. My name is Lara Trump, and I think Mike Lindell is a patriot. He is someone who loves this country, is willing to fight for this country. If you go to mypillow.com today and use promo code Trump, again, promo code Trump, you will not only save money, but you will help us continue this show and other shows like it and help us continue the fight for the future of America.